Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to our weekly Brain Balance show. We took last week off because I wasn't able to do the show, quite honestly. And I guess, Heather, I'm 50% of the equation, right?
I feel like you might be more than that with your technological skills.
It's just the blue glasses. I bring so much with these blue glasses, and that's what it's all about.
They
But
make you even smarter, yes.
I try. I need all the help I can get. I know that. So listen, folks, we are here every week, and it's usually on Tuesdays at 3:30 Central. And so the reason we're here is to help you as busy parents to try to understand your kids a little bit better, understand where they're coming from, especially kids like mine that are struggling with sensory issues. And my son was a brain balance kid. He went through the program for 9 months. It was a huge help to us during a very important developmental stage for him. He's currently homeschooled, so you'll hear me talking about some of the homeschool challenges and running them by Heather. And it's like, I get to talk to Heather, who is, of course, a board certified, cognitive specialist, also National Autism Summit speaker. And she just happens to be my friend, and I get to talk to her every week. So I hope that helps you as a busy parent. Heather, why don't you tell them what we're talking about today while I pull up some of our slides?
All right. We are talking about adverse childhood experiences, also called ACEs today. When you hear that term, a lot of people understandably jump to thinking about physical, emotional abuse, neglect, sexual in the family. And I think we need to go back a slide or two.
All right, but I'll take it out and you keep going.
But recently, the definition of what constitutes an adverse childhood experience has really expanded. And it includes bullying. And that can be bullying at school. That could be sibling bullying that goes beyond the typical sibling kind of little argument, fight, giving each other a hard time kind of thing. Yeah. It can be war, terrorism. If kids have faced hurricanes or tornadoes. But here's a biggie. Kids can have an adverse childhood experience by witnessing violence in or out of the home. So this is really significant because a lot of research is showing that if kids have 4 or more adverse childhood experiences, they are 32.6 times more likely to have a learning or behavioral issue diagnosis. And which one? Yeah, that doesn't even count the ones who are not being diagnosed, because a lot of this gets missed. Health risks go through the roof. And I love this triangle down here because you have an adverse childhood experience. It disrupts neurodevelopment. It actually changes the structure of the brain and the body. It can shorten our genes. Y'all have heard me talk about epigenetics before, which means our DNA is just a blueprint awaiting instructions from the environment. Well, adverse experiences don't really give our genetics the messages we want it to kind of reveal themselves in the most successful way. Yeah. So this is about biology. We know that some kids, they've been compared to flowers. Dandelions are hardy, can kind of thrive in any environment. Doesn't mean we want them to be exposed to these things. Tulips, somewhere in between. Irises, very delicate. So some of this is some of us are wired to be more resilient than others, but because our brains and our bodies are neuroplastic, we can change them. We're going to be talking today about a lot of things to do to help kids get through adverse experiences. The pandemic is an adverse experience for a lot of kids. Food insecurity has really gone up. A lot of people might be losing homes because of unemployment or decreased pay. So, COVID really, does play in here as well. But when I have disrupted neurodevelopment, of course, it impacts not only my learning, but social, emotional, cognitive development. And then I engage in risky behaviors. But the other part of why does cancer go through the roof? COPD, heart disease. We can look at what kids go through and predict their health 30, 40, 50 years down the road. Cool. Kids with 6 or more ACEs. We talk about the body-brain connection, Corey, all the time, and you're Mr. Lingering Dad. But kids with 6 or more ACEs, their life expectancy decreases by 20 years.
Wow.
Because we go into a fight or flight response, just like kids with sensory issues like Corey's. We go into fight or flight response. The body and the brain cannot tell the difference between a real and a perceived threat. And there's inflammation. Parts of our brain shrink. It affects cell development. It shortens our telomeres, kind of the end caps that are protective mechanisms. And look at this, 14 times the number of suicide attempts, 11 times the level of drug use. These are just samples, but it goes on and on and on. So we definitely want to protect our kids. The best thing here is prevention, but kids can have a lot of adverse experiences even when they grow up in loving homes. This is not only about the homes that we know that, wow, kids have been in the foster system, they were neglected, abused, and taken out of that situation. It also, are they being bullied? Pandemic, what is that doing to them? And are they having all their needs met? So it just really goes far beyond what the definition used to be.
I know my little guy walked in. This is not an ACE, but my child walked in. I ran in the house because I was coming to be here in time for the show. And he is his little voice. I mean, he's 5, little Parker. He was just like, "Hey, Dad, are you done with work?" I was like, "I'm so sorry, buddy. I'm not. I love you so much." I gave him a hug and I said, here we go. So he's having fun, half naked in the house, just having a blast. So his schoolwork is clearly done for the morning with his babysitter, so he's good to go. All right, shall we go to our next slide?
Yes. And, I mentioned how it literally changes structurally and functionally our brains. And we start having lower stress tolerance. A child might become jumpy. They might become overwhelmed more easily with the mundane day-to-day stuff. And that leads to fighting, impulsivity, defiance, or just checking out. Some of these kids that seem to be apathetic, it might be a checking out protective mode that they're going into. They may really have difficulty getting a sense of who they are, and difficulty with relationships, regulation. And we've talked, regulation is not only emotional, it is being able to tune out daydreams and hone in on the teacher, not throwing that paper airplane. If they're going to, you do that one more time, you're going to get in trouble. Social skills, verbal and nonverbal communication. What's really fascinating is that a lot of these kids will pick up on anger that is not there. So if you're even monotone, they may perceive anger and kind of lash out in a protective thing, and it's not there. And they underperceive sadness. So then they start seeming to lack empathy when it has nothing to do with their precious little hearts. They can just be in kind of a perpetual fight. But notice this: fight, flight, freeze, or submit response. You hear about fight or flight, but the submit response is if you see your child kind of being a little too go with the flow. Man, they don't even seem to have a backbone. They are so eager to please. What does that tell you? I mean, some of y'all are probably going, I would give anything for my child to be eager to please. No. But we don't want defiance, but we also don't want them to not even have an opinion of themselves. That could be that if I stand up for myself, I have faced the wrath of someone at school, or that's a big signal.
Yeah.
So it negatively impacts problem solving, understanding when I do this, this is what happens, predicting what's going to happen next. Flexibility, everything's this way or everything's this way. I can't really see the shades and degrees of situations or emotions. It slows down learning. It can slow down the development of language, or I have the language, but I can't access it. If you're trying to get what's going on with your kids and they're just like, I don't know, and they can't come up with it. Yeah. Increases stress hormones, and that impacts the body's ability to fight infections. So then again, we swing right back around to that body-brain connection. It impacts really all parts of development, as you can see, both structurally and functionally.
Yeah.
And the other thing on the next slide that we'll look at is it is not just about what happens to children. How many times have you heard us talk about take care of yourself? Self-care is not selfish. But when parents go through ACEs, number one, you deserve to deal with and take care of what you need to do based on anything you went through in your childhood. If you need more motivation, you're worth it. That's enough in my book. But know that it also impacts the kids. Mother's ACEs, 12% of infants' delays by 12 months are the result of adverse childhood experiences the mother went through. Each additional ACE increases the chance of delays, developmental delays of the children by 18%. When fathers go through adverse childhood experiences that they haven't dealt with, 34% higher risk of delays for every ACE he has experienced. And you may say, why on earth is that? Well, we just looked at what ACEs do to our brain architecture. So a caregiver, due to no fault of their own, may struggle to self-regulate, may have difficulty with attaching with the child. On and on it goes. And not to mention that cortisol in the mother during pregnancy can get through that placenta and also kind of impact the child's development even before they're born. But if I have things I haven't dealt with, I have a reduced sense of can do as a parent. Why? And I may feel rejected by my child. Why can't I help him? Or if a spouse is mistreating the children, then the other parent goes through guilt about why did this have to happen to my child? Or it could even be something that happened outside the home. Or you might have less patience with your kids if you've also dealt with ACEs, because you're fighting a battle all the time that's invisible. And you might get mad at the child. They're doing this on purpose to manipulate me. And then you lose the ability to be quite as patient with the child. But so then you might shut down or be hyper aroused or overreact or be the permissive parent. Like, I'm fighting too many battles and I'm going to just let this go. And then we're not really present for the kids. So just know, if we need another reason for parents to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
This is a big incentive right here.
Love it. You want to move to the next one or you want to keep going? Okay.
No, I think that's good.
It's a lot of info on that one.
Yeah. What kids need, two fundamental drives of human beings in general is attachment. We want to have a sense of belonging and a sense of intimacy, closeness with others, and autonomy. We've talked about being hands-on, but not rescuing our kids because we accidentally tell them you can't do this. And so we want to help them problem solve. Everyone craves autonomy. I am responsible. I know how to be independent. I have self-control. If we always solve problems for them, they don't grow those abilities. It decreases their motivation and hope in life.
Yeah.
How do we do that? Harvard termed this, and I just love it, serve and return relationships. So even from the time, all the way from little bitties up through as they continue to develop, we need to be responsive and present for our kids. It's not just about quantity of time, it's quality time. And that's so hard sometimes in this digital age. You've got to set the screens down and have eye contact, get on their eye level. Little bitty ones, they coo, you coo back at them. They make a silly face, you make it back. Peekaboo is a great example for the little ones. But we need to have meaningful conversations with kids. What was your favorite part of the day? What was something really hard? What new strategy did you try? And tell me about the game you played at recess. Meaningful conversations. We follow their lead. We find out what they're interested in. We give them opportunities to explore. And we want to have communication that's not just directive, do this, do that. It is a back and forth exchange. And that's how they grow a sense of self. What do they like? What are they interested in? What are they frustrated about? But kids need, I want you to support my exploration, watch over me, make sure I'm safe, protect me, look for signs I need help, but don't do it for me because then I don't grow autonomy. So, but going back to that the ACEs and parents, the best predictor of a secure attachment between parent and child is not what happened to the parent, but how the parent made sense of those experiences. And we'll continue that line of thought on the next slide. Language. This is honestly one of the most underestimated challenges for kids because, as I've said in other shows, it is very difficult to qualify for services for language delays in the schools. It has to be pretty significant to qualify. And the language demands go up, but we need language for social interactions. We need academic language to understand cumulonimbus cloud. We start talking about social studies and, civics and science vocabulary words. But we need language to have secure attachments. Where do we first learn that? With our parents. And then it translates into friends and teachers and everyone else in our lives. But collaborative communication, again, not just directive, but collaborative, reflective dialogue. You need to share. There are many studies on when parents share something difficult they went through growing up. I can understand why a lot of parents say, I shouldn't discuss that with my child. Use discretion. But when you share on an appropriate level what you went through and how it made you feel, it helps the development of your child, and it helps y'all's attachment. And then they feel more free to share something they went through. You may find out about bullying that you wouldn't have found out about otherwise, or something horrific they witnessed. By the way, they can also witness things on TV. We got to watch that. But coherent narratives co-construct something. If the family goes through something, dad lost his job, or a tornado damaged the home, it was scary. I mean, we were in a closet. Talk about that story, and you both kind of take turns sharing that story. That matters big time.
Yeah.
But always about how it made you feel. Adults share also, because kids need to know that the adults, the heroes in my life, have feelings other than glee, happiness all the time. We are not shamed for quote unquote negative emotions, anger, concern, frustration. Those make us human beings, and they are not a bad reflection on us. It's what we do with them.
Yep.
We need language to repair relationships. But think about this too. Reduces ACE risk in kids. It enhances self-regulation. If I can't put words to how I'm feeling and what I went through, how frustrating. That is why 78% of kids in behavioral intervention programs have language challenges. I can't get the words out, so I'm going to act it out. My behavior is my communication. But this is important for literacy, etc. You get the idea. But language is key. And just because your child talks a lot does not mean they have the complexity and the level of language they need to get through life in the most successful manner. And so on the next slide, I'm going to show you something to do that can really help. When kids learn, like when kids are reading stories, we talk about social emotional books all the time. I've told you about freespirit.com also. But autobiographical memory it's our store of past events that has personal meaning. There is emotion attached to it. From the time kids are toddlers, we want to talk about what happened. I mean, when they're 18 months old, what happened? And we don't expect super complexity, but have them tell you at whatever level they are, whether it is a 2-word utterance or one sentence, that's right. And then expand on it. That hippopotamus was big. And kids need to be able to tell stories and understand stories. When they move to ages 3 to 5, add point of view and prediction. Well, how do you think that made Jimmy feel? Well, what about Susan? How did you feel? Kids understanding that we can all face the same situation and have different opinions about it is a life skill they need in every aspect of their world. And being able to predict what's going to happen next, whether you're reading a story or they're problem solving and coming up with solutions and predicting what will be the outcome if I implement this strategy, that decreases anxiety when I know what to expect next. So start early, share stories, have them tell stories, open-ended questions. When we do this, it provides a sense of meaning and purpose for the future. It helps them figure out what to avoid in the future. Some situations we face are out of our control, but what are bad decisions I made that I can learn from? Problem solving, we've talked about that, but being able to get a sense of identity and continuity across time. We all wear different hats. We all have different facets of who we are. These kids need to understand the parts of them they're struggling with because of what they've been through. Also, what are their hobbies and their interests and their dreams? Get them in touch with all the different facets of themselves. If we don't do this, and kids have been through trauma, they overgeneralize information. When this happens, it's a catastrophe. Anytime this happens, this is always going to be the case. Instead of being able to delineate, it's out of order, it's incoherent. That means it's also a scrambled eggs in my brain. and my executive functions, my critical thinking, my ability to sequence and plan and organize my world is not going to develop. And then I go into fight or flight more because my world is chaos. So an easy way to remember what to do is recall. Have them retell stories. You help elaborate on the story as need be to keep it kind of making it rich. Confirm, whatever they, that's right, that did happen. How did you feel? Oh, yeah, that must have been really tough. Ask open-ended questions. Follow their lead. Always link it to their emotions, how they felt about it.
Beautiful. And I think recall is a good thing to remember.
Yeah.
Sure. I feel like I need that on my fridge with like a flashcard.
Yeah, no, it's a really good, I'm always a big fan of those mnemonic devices.
Yeah.
The good news is that the same child has 4 ACEs, this child has 4 ACEs. If we have certain protective factors in place, the chance of it impacting our mental health, our physiological health, our cognitive development, social emotional development decreases big time, substantially. Secure, stable, nurturing relationships. We've already talked about those serve and return relationships. Concrete family support in times of need. If anyone's listening right now and you have food insecurity or you don't know about resources in your community, reach out, we can help. Working on resilience. We talk about growth mindset all the time and the power of yet. I'm struggling with this right now. I don't have this licked, just kind of solved yet. It just means I haven't done it yet. You will. Know that neuroplasticity and our ability to change and grow never ceases. But positive parenting and teaching skills, we're on here to help you, support you in growing your children's social emotional skills and giving you tips for how to handle sibling rivalries, all those tips that we give you all the time. But reach out to your village. And if you don't know who your village is and what supports are there, again, please reach out. These decrease the impact of ACEs. And on the next slide, different studies call it different things, but they're called counter ACEs or positive childhood experiences on the next slide. And notice how many of these have to do with supportive relationships. If by the time a child is 18, growing up, I had at least one caregiver with whom I felt safe, an adult other than my parent who provided me with support and advice, friends and neighbors, teachers who cared. But kids need, if you are in a troubling situation, what opportunities can your child have for a good time? Do you have friends they can spend time with? What can we do to make their enjoyment at school more? How can we make it intrinsically motivating to them? Mm-hmm. Liking and being comfortable with myself. These kids must know they are not defined by what has happened to them or by what they do. They are human beings, not human doings. We want to talk about their strengths. We want to talk about their interests. We want to, and I've got a slide to show you that in a minute, but beliefs that give me comfort. When you have things that you believe in, it helps you get through a world of hurt that otherwise wouldn't happen. We want to make sure there are positive role models and that you have a village supporting you so that it's not all on your shoulders. We talk about home routines all the time. Yeah. When kids know what to expect, especially when they've been through traumas, that is so comforting.
Boom. Boom. There it is.
And, y'all have heard a lot of talk about mindfulness. It's so important. And Corey and I have talked about going for walks, and that is really being present in this moment. And there's nothing like it. When I go get cardio outdoors, I hear every sound, whether it's the crickets, the birds, the frogs, and the smells of the honeysuckle. But really, the reason mindfulness is so important for individuals going through trauma is that you cannot be in a trigger moment and be mindful at the same time. Why? Because when I am having a trigger to a trauma, that's taking me to the past. Mindfulness is all about I'm in the here and now, and nothing else exists in this moment. Right. And that is very calming. And understand that a lot of kids that we work with have difficulty with body awareness. They may not feel that knot in their stomach that warns them that they're about to go into fight or flight response. So we need to do a lot of have them lift, pull, push, anything where you're putting tension on the muscles, joints, tendons increases body awareness. But I can, if anybody wants activities like this, I'm doing my cursor and nobody can see my screen. But
hang on, I got you.
No, that's okay. Just
it's on. Yes, on your
my
screen.
body when I'm anxious. As we work and grow proprioception by lifting, pushing, pulling, anything, push-ups, jumping, they can start filling in charts like this. When I start to feel anxious, there's a knot in my stomach. This is what I feel like in my temples. They can start pointing to body parts, and that starts regulating because they start feeling themselves escalating before it gets to a 10. Mind sight takes it one step beyond mindfulness. It's how we focus on and have insight regarding the internal worlds of ourselves and others. What do we need? Connection. And we can modify our thoughts and feelings with clarity and depth. I may be like, this is out of control. I can't do it. And I can talk myself out of that and get into a proactive mode and take care of it. And this is very important because trauma integration means I start making sense of the things that happened to me. And a great way to do this is journaling, in addition to those conversations with caregivers, teachers, parents, grandparents, whoever is appropriate for that child in that situation. But I know that when I start escalating, I can get a handle on this fight or flight, and it's not going to rule me.
Beautiful. I like those flowers too.
Yeah, isn't that, they're so pretty. So another counter ACE, we talked about liking myself and being comfortable with my beliefs. Get kids in touch with their future selves. Remember, Corey, I mentioned this a while back and you said, I love that. Yeah. I have this sheet on my computer, if anybody wants it, a blank one. This cute little guy has already filled one out, but it's a picture of himself now. And then he's coloring a picture of himself in the future. Kids tend to think of their future selves as a stranger. We're not necessarily as kind to strangers sometimes as we are to our friends. We want our future selves to be friends. Yeah. So what can I do right now to take care of me in the future? It's kind of the beginning of goal setting. It's the beginning of me really getting in touch with who I am and what I want. Kids need to be in touch with their unique self. What are my attributes? What do I like? What do I not like? And this takes into account my family, my culture, it can be religion, for each individual family, values, opinions, my positive self, build on strengths, give them opportunities to explore their strengths. So many of our kids, the strengths get overlooked. They're masked by the struggles, or the struggle can also mask. It can go either way. Coherent self. This kind of goes back to trauma integration. I know who I was before the trauma, who I am now. In the case of adoption, understand you can be the most amazing adoptive parents ever. And it doesn't mean that they didn't suffer a loss and a feeling of why wasn't I wanted. That is not a reflection on you. And it's really good to have a conversation with kids if you're fostering kids or if you've adopted kids about how they identify themselves, knowing maybe their background, the biology they come from, and how they identify themselves in this family. That's really important. Who I display to the world, as well as the internal stuff I might be afraid to share with everyone. And I don't have to share it with everyone, but I do need to be in touch with all of those pieces of myself. But if I do this, then I can accomplish this, which kind of goes back to this poster. Get kids in touch with all aspects of themselves. It changes lives. And this is just a final, when we do these things to try to prevent or to overcome these, the effects of adverse childhood experiences. I just love this saying from Robert F. Kennedy. Each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And by the way, a lot of the events of this year in the news, aside from the pandemic, prejudices, racism, all of those are adverse experiences, even if they haven't happened directly to your child. So, but if we all stand along that shore and we're tossing ripples in the water, imagine how those connect and can change a whole current for this generation.
It totally can. Totally can. And folks, there's one last slide I want to tell you about, and that is, of course, the contact information for the centers where Heather and her awesome staff work. So if you're in the Texas area, of course, Texas is a massive state. But we have you covered. We've got Katy, Mansfield, and Southlake locations. You can find all the contact info right there. And of course, the emails are right there for you as well. So whatever location is closest to you, you might even be in another part of the country watching this right now. You can just go to brainbalance.com and find the location that's closest to you. And for sure, go check out the Hidden Churn. That is Heather's specific, spot where she's got not only her brain balance videos, but a couple other tools, resources, and insights for you. So make sure you go check that out. And until next time.
Oh, I want to say one thing.
Oh, man.
Dr. Brian Aspie and I have traditionally been doing shows on Friday afternoons, and starting this week, we're doing those on Thursdays instead. We haven't nailed down the time, but we'll be on in a couple of days. I'll be on with Dr. Brian Aspie.
Love it. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll catch you soon.
Bye.
Bye.